Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 205 of the show, and before we get started, we're going to do the house cleaning quick because all of you guys know I like to do it around here, and it only makes sense that we do it, so let's just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back for listening to today's episode because today is the first episode of February, so February of the new year, so we're already 1 month in. We're already I wouldn't say 1 month in, but we're more like 2 months into the new year, which is still kind of weird to say that because we just started this new year not so long ago, and it still feels weird. But thank you guys so much. I also want to say thank you to everyone who sent me birthday wishes. I had a very good weekend with my friends and my family. It was a wonderful time. And again, thank you guys so much for the birthday wishes. I really do appreciate that. I do want to say thank you to the Patreon backers for supporting the show as well. And also thank you to everyone that keeps downloading these episodes, that keeps sharing these episodes, that constantly keeps letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid opinions or not. At the end of the day, I really appreciate it. You guys play a big role in all of this just as much as me because, without you guys, you guys vote on the topics. You guys also listen to these episodes, share them. And that's the reason that we're here today. And for that, I just say thank you guys. But today's episode, I didn't do a poll on it because I didn't really need to, given the fact of how big this news story is, and it was literally breaking news because it happened yesterday. Oh, at the time I was recording yesterday, so Monday, January 31st, that it was announced that Sony had acquired Bungie Studios for $3.6 billion. And to me, I do agree with a lot of other people that yes, while this does seem like it came out of left field, it also doesn't. It makes a lot of logical sense why Sony would want Bungie. However, I'm going to go out and say this right now. I think they overpaid. I personally don't think Bungie is, especially for a studio that only has one IP right now, I don't think they're necessarily worth $3.6 million because you have to put this also in perspective. Microsoft spent about $7 billion to acquire ZeniMax and Bethesda. That included Fallout, that included Doom, that included the Elder Scrolls, that included the Outer Worlds. Like, it included a lot of studios, it included a lot of great IPs, and you're meaning to tell me that Bungie is worth half of that with just one IP. Well, yes, Destiny is a big IP, and I'm not degrading that. People need to also understand, you have to think about this in the sense of logic and reasoning, where there was a clear reason that was outlined in the acquisition that was heavily focused on, and a lot of people have talked about it, is the tools and resources that Bungie have and experience that is, I would say, necessary for Sony, because Sony, as track record has proven, does not know how to properly manage a live service style game, first person shooters. Like, they don't have necessarily the best track record for managing these large scale games that, cross generations. Like, primarily Sony is well known for their single player experiences. That's just objective fact. Currently, that's literally what won them the generation prior with the PS4 and the Xbox One, where, just being honest, yes, the exclusives and the first party, I'd say the first person story driven games definitely helped elevate Sony and their pedigree and how people view them. Horizon Zero Dawn, the new God of War, Uncharted 4, trying to think of another one that came out. If it ever comes to mind, it'll probably come up. Oh yeah, Bloodborne, another good game by itself too. Like, there was a lot of good first person games that Sony, that's their bread and butter. They're good at that. But when it comes to the live service style games, yes, they don't have that necessarily that good of an experience, so it makes sense that they would acquire Bungie, who does have a much better and proven track record of handling live service games. But I also want people to understand this very clearly, that I've noticed this was a conversation that's been going on and it's been very overlooked, that a lot of people are like, oh, this is Bungie. This is the same studio that made the original Halos, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo Reach. And I'm like, well, in name, yes, it's the same studio. In reality, it's nowhere. It's literally a ghost of, like, how ironic. It's a ghost of its former self. This is well documented. I've said this multiple times. This has been well documented that during the time that Bungie, when they were with Microsoft and then, decided to leave Microsoft and become a conglomerate of Activision Blizzard, that yes, a lot of the staff left because of how Blizzard, took away a lot of their creative freedom and what they were able to work on. That yes, a mass exodus of employees did leave, and a lot of those people that worked on the original Halos, yes, they basically either went independent or they ended up going to work for 343, and that's why 343 has a lot of old people that did work on the original Halos. Like, that's just objective fact. That's where a lot of them went, or like I mentioned before, they went independent, and this is well documented. Bungie, in terms of, yes, track record of managing a live service game, yes, Destiny 2 is doing really well. It is a popular game. I'm not going to say it was, but you also have to realize Bungie doesn't necessarily have the best track record when it comes to launching these games, and also some business practices and how they handle some things like vaulting or, sunsetting and stuff like that, and community interactions, that they're not necessarily the best. Let's just be objectively honest here. They're not the best. They're pretty piss poor at it. And prime example of people are like, oh, Destiny's going exclusive, bro. That means Destiny 3 is going to be only on PlayStation. And I'm like, this is where it gets really weird. Because yes, while they were acquired for $3.6 million, or billion dollars, my bad. What happened here is Bungie is still, and Jim Ryan even came out and said this at the same time, that Bungie will still operate as an independent studio with independent publishing rights, which is very weird in the sense that Sony spent this much money to acquire them. However, based on the language that is being used and shared by both companies, Bungie will still go about being an independent entity that is under Sony. So it's more like, it's not a case of like how Insomnia and Blueprint got acquired by Sony and now they're under the Sony banner. Now it's like, well, Bungie is there, but they still do their own thing, which is, I think, a better way that I always kind of defined it. It's more like Bungie is kind of using like Sony as a friends of benefits situation. I know that sounds really bad to say it that way, but hear me out. It's basically a game of like, hey, I want the benefits of like that Sony green, because hey, that Sony money is going to be really handy. 3.6 billion can go a very long way for us, but we don't necessarily want to be completely owned by you guys where you guys get to tell us what to do. We still want to be independent and do our own thing, but we still want the benefits of getting the money and the extra revenue from you guys. So that's how this thing's going to work out. That's how I kind of view the situation, where it's strange that Sony would spend this much money, which I still personally say I think they overpaid. I think Bungie, at most they should have given Bungie would have been like maybe $1 billion, maybe about $2 billion, I'd say at best. Because I get it. It's like you basically paid $3.6 billion for one IP and then a future game that they're also working on. And I get it. Destiny 2 does make a lot of money. It's a very popular live service game. But we also have to keep in mind that Bungie does not have the best track record when it comes to new games starting off, because, well, if you want to use Destiny 1 and 2 as an example, Destiny 1, while was extremely hyped up and everyone was excited to play it, when we got to play it, it was straight ass cheeks. It was pretty garbage. It was arguably a terrible game until at least The Taken King came out. And then, then when they finally got to the very end, when they ended with Rise of Iron, the game was it was a very good game. Destiny 1 for sure. When we got to Rise of Iron, or at least that point. Destiny 2 launched, they're like, oh, we fixed we improved everything. We added a story that's actually meaningful. And Destiny 2 was complete dog shit at launch, and they had to have another situation where basically another Taken King, where Forsaken was the big DLC that basically saved their asses. And it's like, this company doesn't necessarily have the best track record for producing quality content from the jump. And I want people to understand that going forward is, well, yes, Bungie is a great studio. And I think this mainly comes down to the idea that, yes, they're able to make a game that has longevity. That's the main selling point to them. I guess that's why Sony could justify the $3.6 million to say, well, they have the tools and the resources that we personally need, and it makes sense to buy them because, well, they have the tools, they have the skill set, they have the people that we need to do what we're just not personally good at. So having them under our umbrella, hey, it covers our bases, which is the whole point. You want to cover your bases. It's exactly what Microsoft did, where they bought some studios that were better at first party or single player experiences. But they also had good studios that could work on multiplayer experiences as well, like live service style games. It was also reported as well that Bungie was looking around for other potential buyers, and Microsoft was one of them. I'm not surprised that if Microsoft just heard the price of how much Bungie was asking and just told them, yeah, about that, I don't think you guys are worth that much. I wouldn't be surprised. Microsoft, as we could clearly tell, they could spend that money if they really wanted to. Let's just be real here. They didn't just drop $68.7 billion on Activision Blizzard. You honestly think they couldn't drop $3.6 billion in a heartbeat to buy out Bungie? But I do think Bungie is a better fit for Sony due to the fact of like the common interests that are needed from both, where Sony needs a good studio that can handle live service games. Bungie needs a big publisher that can hand over some big green when they need it. But this also leads into some other concerns that people have been having in the past couple months and probably a couple years. It's the idea of publisher consolidation, where it's a lot of the main big IPs are going to be owned by a handful of companies. Like prime example, Microsoft now owns ZeniMax Bethesda, and they're in the process of owning Activision Blizzard. There's a lot of IPs that are now at the disposal of Microsoft. Same thing with Sony owning Bungie, and then Bungie primarily Sony mentioning in their interview of acquiring Bungie that the acquisitions haven't ended, that they're still working on a couple more. We just have to wait for more information throughout the year. And to me, I could see why a lot of people are concerned. I could see why a lot of people in the industry are worried that we're just going to be in the situation of having a monopoly where only a few big players are basically publishing all the games. You can only buy them from certain places, or you can only play them in certain areas and certain consoles. And I get why that's a big issue. I'm a bit concerned about it too, because it's starting to become a bit concerning with who's getting bought out and who's not. Like, people are talking about like Sony should just buy out Konami or Square, even though personally neither one of those companies, I don't think that would sell. Square, as much as they have a rich history with Sony and publishing games on Sony platforms, I don't think Square would sell out. They don't have a reason to. They're still making money. Same thing goes for like Capcom. Like, Capcom doesn't have a reason to sell. Hey man, they're literally making green at this point. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft buys them, which I think would be crazy. Or Konami is another example, because Konami, while they do own the rights to Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game and stuff like that, they also own the rights to Metal Gear. And a lot of people have been wanting a new Metal Gear. And some people have been saying that Sony should buy them out so they can make a new Metal Gear game. And I'm like, yeah, I still don't think Konami's going to sell, because they're too busy printing all this money, bro. Because last time I checked, they just launched Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels, and that's making a lot of money for them. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links made a lot of money for them. You also got the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game in real life. That also makes a lot of money for them too, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still very popular. And same thing goes with like the arcade machines and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I think it was a good deal. I think it made a logical sense for both parties. It benefits both parties very well because they both get something that they need out of it. I just don't think that Bungie was worth as much as they were given. That's just my personal opinion. I think that Sony might have overpaid for them, but at the end of the day, I think it's a good fit. I agree with a lot of people that saw this coming, that they're like, it makes a lot of sense that Bungie would partner, or at least go with the option of being bought out by Sony. Now, what's just very interesting is the fact that a lot of the language that's being used of, terminology, whether it be like, Bungie remaining an independent publisher, that they're still like they own all their IP still, because that was the main concern that I had was they worked so hard to gain their freedom and independence. They basically fought their own revolutionary war to get out of Activision Blizzard, to own the rights to their IPs and their game, just to get bought out again. Like, that was another concern people had too, was like with the ideas of them talking about Microsoft and being owned by Microsoft again, like would things be different? And personally, it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the day. I'm excited to see what they're able to do, especially with Sony having the access to Bungie. Like, are they able to maybe bring back some older IPs that Bungie is able to revive and help make better? We just have to wait and see. At the end of the day, it's going to be a very interesting year so far. I think the acquisitions are nowhere near done. I think we're going to see another one from Microsoft get announced, not maybe anytime soon, but at least maybe later in the year, and same thing goes for Sony. But at the end of the day, let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below, whether you agree with my opinion or not, whether you personally found this shocking or not, because as much as I say I was surprised, at the same time, I'm not. But it's going to be interesting, guys. Not going to lie. And I'm interested to see how the story develops. I'm interested to see how this goes. And if the deal goes through, which it most likely will, then it's going to be crazy, guys. But I love you guys to death. Please continue to have yourselves a wonderful day. Please continue to take care of those around you, because let's be honest, the world is still a pretty weird place. Not going to lie. But as always, guys, don't do anything dumb. Have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. Please, guys, be mindful, be courteous and respectful of those around you, because as I keep saying, guys, the world is still a weird place. It's still weird out there, and the best we can do is just be kind and courteous to those around us, guys, and make the most of what we have. But I love you guys to death. Please have yourselves a wonderful week, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.